Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to another Disability Programs in Canada series from the Blind Banter podcast slash YouTube videos. I hope everybody is doing well. Tonight we're going to be talking about Ontario's provincial programs. I do want to get every province and territory done within the next month and a half to 2 months, just with a newborn and the current COVID situation. Everything's been kind of hectic, so I do apologize for taking so long. But tonight, let's talk about the Ontario program, starting with ODSP. Now, the Ontario Disability Supports Program, which is the largest disability program in Ontario, it encompasses all forms of disabilities, and it does have its own vetting process. So the program is run by the province of Ontario, and it has a vetting process of both doctor's notes, application process, and there's a possibility for an adjudication process as well if you've been denied. Now, I have been told by a fair amount of people that ODSP is a little harder to get onto than other programs, and a large percentage of people with disabilities do not make it the first time around, so they do have to go through the appeals process, and they have to go through that that whole part of the ODSP process. Now, they do retroactive payments, so if it does take you a little longer, at least you will have a little bit of back pay coming your way, which is always nice. Now, with this program, the Ontario Disability Support Program is a program that you can be on for life. So once you're accepted and once you've gone through the whole hassle of it, you do get access to many programs for the rest of your life, or until your financial situation has changed, and also depending on your marital status. Um, if you're single when you're going in, but say, for example, your partner makes too much, then they do not look at just your income. They look at the entire household income. So they would take your the spousal amounts into consideration as well. The Ontario Disability Support Program does offer both monetary support, but it also gives you the access to the Ontario Drug Benefit Program, or the ODSB. And what that's going to allow you to do is that's going to allow you to get your prescription medication for free, or depending on which pharmacy, some do waive the filling fee. Other ones do charge you the $2 to $4 depending on where you are going to get them filled. And that really does help you with most prescription medication. Now, if that formulary, what they call it, which is the list of drugs on the Ontario Drug Benefit Program, if that is not one of the drugs that you do currently take, you can go and get a special request form. And once you fill out everything and you get your doctor to help you out with it, they will include that, or they can help cover the costs of that specific drug. Now, you just have to deal with the formulary and the list slash your caseworker on a case-by-case basis to see if they can facilitate you on that one. And that will allow you to get onto some other programs. For example, it will allow you to get into some of the lower income programs through, say, Hydro One or Ottawa Hydro, for example, in Ottawa here. If you're not using one of those two, then whatever your local hydro company will be, they do help you with getting onto some of the low income programs, as well as going through like your gas, or your your natural gas, for example. We use Enbridge here, and I know Union Gas has the same thing, where they will get you into the low income programs. So those can be really beneficial. They do help you with in my case, due to the blindness, they will help you with prescription eyewear, as well as if you do have a special case, which I did. I needed to get a pair of ultra dark sunglasses, and they were able to facilitate that for me. Now, it did take me 8 months to get the approval to get the sunglasses, so they can take a long time for specialty things, but at the end, they do provide you with it in many circumstances. They also will provide you with a work allowance if you're starting work, and that when I did use it, which was a couple years back, it was $300, but I know that it can vary case by case, and that'll help you get brand new pair of shoes, for example, like dress shoes, a couple dress clothes, just things to help you with your new work experience or your new position that you got, depending on where you're working, and they can really help that. They also do have a transportation allowance, which can cover bus tickets, which will now be the Presto card. They do, under the ODSP and the Ontario Works, you do have the new community pass through OC Transpo here in Ottawa, where I believe it's $35 or $40 per month. So it's definitely a great program to be on if you do have a disability and you are eligible for it. So definitely look into that. Now, if you are not eligible for ODSP, or if you're coming into Ontario and you're not really getting anything and you do need something, while you're applying for the Ontario Disability Supports Program, they do have another program called Ontario Works. Now, Ontario Works is considered the social assistance or welfare arm through the province, and that would be for people that don't necessarily have a disability but are on low income. Now, that does also offer you the Ontario Drug Benefit Program, that does also help you with some of the other things through ODSP that can get you access to low income housing as well. And Ontario Works is usually the first stop on the final stop of ODSP. And any worker that I've ever dealt with trying to get onto ODSP has always told me to apply for Ontario Works, just to be able to pay for some of your immediate bills and your immediate expenses. Now, you get a little bit more than half of what you get through ODSP on Ontario Works. So it's definitely just a stepping stone. It's not something that if you have a lot of bills would be a great thing. I believe now, I'm sure it has went up, but when I took it about 8 or 9 years ago, it was around the $630 mark. From when I'm talking to some of my colleagues about a month or so ago, they were only getting about $650, $660 per single, and about $1,000 per couple. Now, I know that each person and each family unit has a specific case. So if you have a guide dog, a registered seeing eye dog, or just a service dog, then they do give you a certain stipend for it, and they will allow I think they call it a benefit. ODSP also covers the benefit, and it was, when I was using it, $70. Now, that could have changed because it's been a few years, but again, there's nothing really advertised about it. So you definitely have to talk to your worker and see what kind of programs are available to you. There's also the ODSP Action Coalition, which they do have a Twitter and Facebook and a lot of the information online. So if you were to Google kind of ODSP programs, they will give you a large list. I'm not sure if it's fully definitive depending on what website you go to, but it should definitely get you through the right way, because I find that sometimes your caseworkers are less than forthcoming with a lot of that information when they say, oh yes, you're okay, but really there's 3 or 4 other benefits that you can kind of include into your account. And Ontario Works is kind of the same thing, that will get you into a lot of the low income programs to allow you for, in Ottawa, they have a thing that you can get some energy incentives to make your home more energy efficient, and things like that. The community bus pass as well, which is $30 to $40, is also available to people with Ontario Works. There are a lot of employment programs for both ODSP and Ontario Works individuals and clientele, as well as there is free dental for many things through ODSP and our Ontario Works as well. Now, another program that's actually open to everybody with disabilities and is not specifically for financial gain is the ADP, or the Assistive Devices Program. Now, the Assistive Devices Program is a program which is run by the Ontario government as well, but it helps you with equipment and services. So, for example, the ones that I've used it for was getting a computer to help me at home. I also received a magnifier as well. So I got a video magnifier, a desktop stand CCTV, and they're able to cover 75% of the cost of it. So for my case, because it was a low vision aid, they had to use their partner, which was the Canadian National Institute of the Blind, or the CNIB, and they were the ones that ran both the assistive technologies program, which is through the CNIB, which kind of gets you and tests you for a computer. So that was done just at the local one. There, at the time, there was a fairly lengthy, I think it was a 2-month wait list, and as of a month ago, it was something like 4 or 5 months, just due to the whole COVID thing, and they're waiting until everything happens. But on any given time, depending on which part of Ontario you're in, it could range anywhere from 3 weeks to upwards of 4 months at some of the locales. So definitely contact your local CNIB office to find out when or where you can get that done. Now, if you're not on ODSP or Ontario Works, then there is a $100 administration fee that they charge for the computers, and there was none for the magnifiers, but you are required to pay 25% of the value of the magnifier or the device through the Assistive Devices Program. But if you're on the Ontario Disability Supports Program or Ontario Works, those two programs will pay for the 25% that you are supposed to pay. Now, under this program, you are allowed, depending on what type of device you get, everything has a waiting program, or a waiting period. So for example, you are allowed a magnifier. When I got mine, it was every 4 years. And so it's a loan program, and you put down, at the time I put down $1, and it just it was a 4-year lease. And once the 4 years is up, then it's completely yours. But again, that 25% was covered by the Ontario Disability Supports Program when I worked for it, when I was under it. And the computer is the same thing. Now, with the computer and the technology, not all of them are required to have a warranty program. The magnifier, because it was on a lease program for 4 years, did have a full warranty / coverage, that if anything happened, it was the University of Waterloo that was taking care of it, and I guess was facilitating that project. So the only thing that I had to keep was the shipping box that it came in with, because if you didn't keep it, it was going to cost you $100 for them to send you new packing materials, because you have to specifically use that box for, I guess, just for security reasons. So that's one thing that you need to make sure that you keep, and it moved with me. So that was really the only hindrance of the program. But other than that, it was really good. The Assistive Devices Program also covers, it helps people with wheelchairs, with mobility aids. If you're visually impaired, your canes, your mobility canes, or your white canes, I guess, those are all covered under ADP as well, which the CNIB does facilitate for you. So that's why the cost of the cane is usually around $20 or as low as $10 um, for the aluminum ones. So if you want more of the fancier graphite or carbon fiber, then of course they're going to cost you a little bit more. But that that's a whole different conversation for another day. Now, there's also a couple other ones that we won't get into too much detail. But again, if you contact Service Ontario and you do have a disability, definitely look at getting a parking permit if a mobility issue affects you. They are done by Service Ontario, and they are just another form that your doctor has to help you fill out. So that's one thing that you should look into if you do have a mobility issue. With the also just kind of jumping back to the assistive devices program, depending on what you need, they will cover screen readers and they will cover certain computers, but you only have limits of them. So definitely take a look at the current assistive devices program website and find out what the limits are and see if any of the equipment that they offer is something that will benefit you, because it's a great program, and there's always changes to it and there's always new equipment getting added to it. So you may not see something, but wait 4 to 5 months and you may see another magnifier or a low aid or a low tech / high tech device that may show up on there. So it's definitely something. And if there isn't something, you can always call them and request something, and they may have it in the works, or they may be able to add it depending on, I guess, the amount of people that are interested in getting it. So yeah, with the parking, so then jumping back to the parking permits, so definitely look into that. It does help you get closer to the stores. It does allow you to park on the side of city-owned parking spots, paid parking spots for up to 3 hours. I know that they just changed it, so please definitely check your locale and your city / municipal government's website to see the specifics on what they allow for the disability parking permits. You can also contact, I believe it's 211 for Service Ontario across Ontario. If not, just find the local Government of Ontario's website for Service Ontario, and they'll be able to help you with your specific location's disability parking permit. Another one, if you're a student or know of a student, is a lot of the OSAP, the Ontario Students Assistance Programs organization does have multiple grants available to people that are specifically focused with disabilities. So they have so many different ones that you definitely do want to check them out. They do have one for severe disabilities, ones for not severe disabilities, ones that are specific to learning challenges, and all the different grants offer you different programs or different money from different funds depending on what specifically that you're looking for. They do have some loan forgiveness as well. They will help you with, when I was going through Algonquin College here in Ottawa, they were able to tap into a 25, I want to say either a $200 or a $2,500 fund, which helped me with some technology that I needed, including like a talking calculator and some of the other things for both the math and the magnifier for some of the paperwork that wasn't necessarily digital. So there are a lot of funds within both the school that the school can access through your financial aid office, as well as just by contacting the Ontario Student Assistance Program and just asking them about the grants. So you can go to OSAP's website and you can see all the different grants and programs. You can call them, they'll be able to do it. And there's also your financial aid office of your school should be able to tell you what's available to them. And that's one thing that's extremely beneficial if you do need those things. Because, for example, the talking calculator I needed was $1,100. So they're not cheap, and it was extremely beneficial for me. It was a graphing calculator, so it definitely made my time a lot easier. Now, in Ontario, through the Attorney General, they do have guide dog permits. So they do have their own ID for registered service animals, and that includes the dogs for autism, the dogs for the blind, like seeing eye dogs, the ones of hard of hearing, the and the dogs for the deaf. So they have all these ones that are with mobility issues. So they do have a large list of service animals that they will provide guide dog permits for, and those will be the licenses to be able to get them into the different establishments through like restaurants or anywhere the guide dogs are permitted, which is anywhere the public is allowed. So that would be restaurants. Realistically, you can bring them into movie theaters if you wanted to, museums, obviously public transit, all the stores. So anywhere where it's open to the public, it will be something that your service animal could join you with. And the guide dog permit will work as ID in some circumstances, and it has helped me before when that's all I would have with me would be the Novato or Herbie's license, and I needed to kind of show proof of ID. And because it was done through a provincial authority through Ontario, they did consider that to be a form of valid ID. So that card is most often registered on behalf of you from your guide dog school. So, for example, when I went through Guide Dogs for the Blind in Oregon, they covered it for Novato. And most recently, when I went through the Seeing Eye, they submitted all the paperwork on my behalf as well to the government of Ontario. And it does take a while, so it can take 6 to 8 weeks at the very earliest for you to receive that card. It does have a picture of both you and your companion, and it does have Braille on part of it, and it's fairly large. It's fairly large print on the card as well. It's got a nice shiny border, so it looks very official and very pretty, actually, surprisingly for a government document. And it just helps people if they ever ask for proof or ID of your guide dog. You can say, yeah, absolutely, here you go. So that's done every 5 years. I know mine will needs to be renewed in 5 years. So there is no cost to you. Now, with that being said, make sure you check with your local area to see what specific licenses your service dog needs. Because in Ottawa, you do still need to get a dog tag for them, and you still need to register and get them a city license. Now, there is no fee for it, but just for legality's sake and so that everything is registered and on the up and up, they do request you to get them registered and add the license tags to their collar. So that's one thing that you should definitely check into. I don't know of any locale in Ontario, again, that will charge you for a registered dogs, but I think it's just more so for the legalities and just to make sure everything is good, just in case the microchip or the tag, if you don't have one with your specific information, will be operational, because unfortunately those microchips are electronic. So if your microchip fails and you don't have any form of license on the collar or your information, then heaven forbid, your companion may get stuck in the in a shelter, or else through the Humane Society. So that's one thing that you definitely want to look into, is to be able to put the proper documentation and the proper information onto your animal. Most schools will ask you to get your dog checked at least once a year, both just for kind of an overall wellness exam. And I do recommend, so does many schools, to ask the vet to check to see what type of microchip you do have, because there are a few different ones that are kind of big, I guess, and the most common ones. And just to make sure that that microchip is still working, because if it isn't, then that's something that you may want to possibly look at changing or replacing, and making sure that whenever you go across borders or when you go on trips with them, that everything will be on the up and up and everything's registered. If you have a program like the Home and Away, which is a paid service, you definitely want to have all the information updated, as well as those microchips and tags properly documenting exactly where you are, if you've changed your phone number, any of those types of things, your address. So that's what I recommend. And both my dogs always get their microchips checked every single time they go to the vet, just to make sure that everything's working. So that's just a brief kind of talk through of some of the programs that I've been able to come across through the Government of Ontario's website, and some of the programs that I've used specifically. There are many other programs talking specifically about other disabilities, but as I am visually impaired, those are pretty much the ones that seem to be some of the bigger ones that the visually impaired community and the blindness community uses. So I will include I will include the links for both the Government of Ontario's website and some of the specific programs websites. The beautiful thing is all of these have a lot of information both on Google as well as on the specific sites. And if you do Google these programs, you will get the specific sites, as well as a lot of lists on what each program will specifically offer what type of disability. So definitely do a deeper dive on these. And I just want to thank you for watching. And I do hope you join me for all the other ones that are coming through. And if you do have any questions, or you do want to add anything, please definitely give us a call, an email, at blindbanter@gmail.com. You can also get us on Twitter, The Blind Banter, or Facebook at Blind Banter, or Instagram, which is at The Real Blind Banter. So until next time, stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.